in Qatar, in Los Angeles, and so he has this amazing Rolodex of people in all sorts of fields, in all sorts of areas that are really incredible, that most of us have never heard of, that are authorities in their field. So that's one thing that we have, is this person who has been doing this for years and knows how to do the curation of events. The second part is we're in Berkeley. So we have a university that is extraordinary and a group of people who are attuned to the idea of academic discussion and open to this type of conversation. In starting out, we worked with Lance, met with Lewis Black, who put on South by Southwest, who encouraged us, warned us that in 1985 there were just a couple hundred people there, and look what it's become today. We also started it very late in the year. We knew we wanted to do it in October. We had to pick a weekend where there was no home game for Cal football. And Lewis said, I think this was in a May or June, go ahead and do it in October. Don't wait a whole year to plan, just do it. That's how you learn, and no matter when you start, you'll find that you're doing everything in the last 3 months anyway. So there's no reason to wait a whole year to do it. So we did. We have two venues which are across the street from one another that hold about 450 people in each one. We position it as not a conference, but a festival. It's a series of conversations and demonstrations. And we started out also with the idea of those things that are synonymous with Berkeley, the #1 biotechnology school in the world, social activism, food justice, and an obsession with food. And those things that get people excited or that they think are synonymous with our community. So we are about to have year 3, October 16th and 17th, and I don't know what you can see of this, but if you go on Not While I'm Talking, berkeleyideas.com, you can see the whole thing. You can see the schedule, you can see the profile of the speakers.
But it's called Uncharted.
The event itself is uncharted, and the idea being looking at things unmapped, looking at things in a different way, discussions about ideas. So that's where we came up with the name Uncharted. This year, we are up in ticket sales from last year. So as of, I haven't checked in the past 3 days, but we were, when I left, we had sold more tickets than we had attendance last year. Last year, we had about $35,000 in ticket sales and $40,000 in sponsorship. So I went from about $19,000 in sponsorship year 1, and about $40,000 last year, and this year we've hit $65,000
In sponsorship.
In sponsorship, and we anticipate about $35,000 plus in ticket sales. We admitted that ticket sales are our mystery. It's our problem. We are not selling as many tickets as we think we should, but we figure we're going to make about $100,000 this year, and so we are making profit. It's not quite where we want to be, but we also feel that we can't really judge ourselves on that until we hit year 5, that we really have to look at what's there. I'll also be honest that I have a dispute with my partners. We're very strong opinions, all of us. I don't believe that our ticket sales structure is what it should be, and I think we should make it a whole lot simpler. We do a whole thing with early bird tickets and senior tickets and student tickets and scholarship tickets, and I think it complicates the issue and that people hold off. Eventbrite has advised us that your major ticket sales are the last 4 days before your event. So things could change dramatically between now and then. We realize that we have a different market, but we also know that some of our sponsors include Autodesk and Cloudera, things that don't have a local orientation necessarily, though they know us, but they want to be associated with something that's innovative and something that's very different. And that's been something that's been great for us. We also do have a lot of local sponsors. We do a party, so it's a Friday and a Saturday all day. We do a party on Friday night, This year, as part of sponsorship, Whole Foods is catering my party, which is a big step for us. So it's an interesting mix. We have some local financial people. We have a relationship with a local hotel in terms of space. So we put together a lot of different pieces, you know, in terms of what we're serving or what we're doing, who's doing our coffee breaks. One of the things we learned in year 1 and year 2 was we've got to put in longer times for coffee breaks. And I think that's something we're all experiencing here, is that when you are exposed to new ideas and you have thoughts, you want to discuss them. We can only absorb so much. So this year our coffee breaks are a little bit longer. We're not trying to pack quite as much in. I think we're up to about 35 minutes. People need to stretch, they need to think, they need to talk. We also have contracted with a local bookstore. They work with us, they carry the books. We do a sort of a pop-up bookstore in the lobby of one of our venues, and they stock the books that have been written by some of our speakers. And the speakers run everything from Cameron Bell, I don't know if you guys know him, comedian, he has a television show going right now. He created quite a stir in Berkeley. We had a big deal where he is African American and was standing outside of a coffee shop actually talking to his wife. One of the servers thought he was disturbing people on the street. He claimed racism, blew up into a big, big event. Tiffany Shlain, the filmmaker, Alice Kaczynski, who's written about the New York Times this weekend, the leading authority on Putin is speaking. It's a really big mix. There's also some demonstrations. It's, again, this idea of interaction. And again, an open mic, which, as I think I mentioned yesterday, in Berkeley is always an interesting experience. And that's really the story.
What format?
So the format is all conversations, except for the demonstrations where there's some music and there's some activity. And it's really that idea of speaking for about 20 minutes and then allowing about 10 to 15 minutes for interaction with the audience.
How many people overall participate? I mean, you said you have $35,000 in tickets. Is that 1,000 people or?
No. The maximum we can hold in either of the venues is 450.
So do you have then a total of 900 people?
No, we use one and then take a break and move to the other. We move back and forth. There's some limitations. One of our venues is Berkeley Repertory Theater, and they have a performance in the evening. So we have to be out of there by 4 o'clock. And it's sort of juggling between the two. Some is better on the one stage than the other in terms of the activities.
So the public buys tickets to whichever part of it they would like?
No, you can buy a 2-day ticket or a 1-day ticket. We played with the idea of having people being able to buy for one particular segment or the other. But one of the things that became very apparent to all of us is I don't know, if you look at the speaker list, I don't know most of those people. I learned more from the sessions where I didn't know what I was walking into. So we found that people were more inspired, got more excited actually about the things they didn't know.
So what is the price point on it?
So right now, I think we're sticking with $86 a day if you buy as a companion. So 2 people buy, it's $86 for each day. It gets very complicated. I had to write it down, and again, when we did it, we were at an event, and because that, again, I'm being honest, is one of the disagreements that I have.
So it's $176 for 2 people for 2 days? And then
Per person. If you buy 2 tickets. I'll love to talk to you off.
No? Okay.
It's just because
it's expensive. It's expensive.
Right.
Yes, it is.
Isn't that a similar price point to South by Southwest, except you can't buy it by the day, right?
So it's much less expensive than TED. It's much less expensive than the Aspen Festival. I would put the caliber of our speakers at that level.
Do you have people that you have to bring the people in and house the speakers, you know, the whole component of dealing with.
Right, but it's pretty limited, but yes, I
Okay.
do, and that's a part of
Draw a
my
line.
relationship. So one of my sponsors is the local hotel. And I do some trade on some of this. I do trade for one of the venues that I use throughout the year, and I'm doing some trade with the hotel to compensate.
Because conference price points are always typically higher than anyone would like. Do you give any thought and consideration to people from low communities who might want to participate in these discussions but can't because of the price?
So we have scholarships. We have scholarships, and we have opportunities for volunteers who can be a part of the program.
How much, in terms of resources and time from your staff, does this take up?
A lot.
Yeah.
And that's, again, a point of discussion that it's a lot of work for all of us, because we're small. There's only 5 of us.
You don't hire anyone else to fill?
So we have someone that we've hired to do some PR for us, which has been very, very helpful. We've gotten some really nice coverage this year, more than we've ever had before. We have an ongoing relationship with our local PBS station. We've done some work with them on this. This is the first year we've hired someone who really has been working the PR angle, which has made a significant difference.
Full-time, part-time?
I think she's part-time, and there is a project manager who's on it part-time, who day of is really working the logistics.
Does the public radio station, are they interested in broadcasting parts of it later or in any of that?
Not so far, but they should.
They should have.
They should, yeah. And they charge us, even though they're our partners, they charge us for
PSAs.
to do podcasts or anything like that.
Do you do podcasts or anything like that so that it's recorded and people can look at your past programs and say, yeah, that was worth it?
Yes. Not as effectively, again, on that to-do list, not as effectively as we should or could. But yes.
And have you thought about the notion of doing any paid access to a live stream,
I don't know.
which would help you up the calendar?
That's an awesome idea.
How complicated?
Okay.
How complicated is that? Even just the whole idea of a live stream, even if it's not paid access, but just to.
So I guess that does kind of segue into what I do.
Oh,
And we can continue on conversations back and forth about that. But my husband and I have a company that is webcasting this event for Lion because we love Lion. But in my other life, I lead Nowcast SA, which is a nonprofit 501c3 fundly news organization in San Antonio, and one of our hallmarks is that we do a lot of live webcasting. Each of the past years since 2010, we have webcast from about more than 100 different places in San Antonio, including places that don't actually have internet, by streaming over clear 4G WiMAX. So we streamed the Pride Parade from a park in the middle of the city last year. And we've done things including the San Antonio's envisioning strategic planning thing called SA 2020 when we were brand new and still had a lot of money for innovation from the Knight Foundation. So we streamed it bumper to bumper. And so we had hundreds of hours of civic content from San Antonio. We've done Luminaria, which was a huge festival in Hemisphere Park, where we live streamed from 3 different places in Hemisphere Park, and including the grand finale with the San Antonio Symphony and Over the Rainbow and lanterns going up. It was absolutely spectacular. And this past year, did one of my dreams came true. We live streamed from the brand new Tobin Center, the Youth Orchestra of San Antonio, the Children's Chorus of San Antonio, the Adult Chorale, all did a terrific performance in the Tobin Center, and we were brought into live streaming. What has happened is that people said to us fairly quickly, how much will it cost for us to bring you in to do this? And I had to figure out what the cost was because we were so early in the game we couldn't spell business plan. And I figured out that ultimately what we're charging now for an underwriting fee is $2,500 for half a day and $3,000 for a full day, roughly. It depends on the conditions of the train. This past week, we just got asked to come in for the inauguration of the new president of Texas A&M University next Saturday, and they want us to come in and do that, which is a big deal. And Our Lady of the Lake University also has a new president, and we had been asked 4 days earlier to do her, I'm not sure what they call it, but, and it's going to be from 2 different places on the campus, so we're going to have to do 2 different setups, and one camera's in the balcony, and it's getting completely insane. So there's 2 of you? Well, there are 3 of us on staff, and our development director is in Fort Collins, Colorado. So we elasticize when we do things like that, when we hire folks. And I did tell them at Texas A&M and Our Lady of the Lake that my preference is to bring in students so that we can give them that experience, because I think it's the future. And since
so what are the general costs for this? You mentioned your underwriting fee is $2,500.
So the general cost, I mean, if you think of our budget as in an ideal circumstance being about $365,000 or $350,000, then you have to, it costs us $1,000 a day to exist. So that's an underlying thing with all of it. But there's live streaming costs of actually doing it. There's equipment costs, which, I mean, we roll with about $35,000 worth of equipment whenever we go to a new place. So that's substantial. Yeah, it's a nonprofit. It's a nonprofit, but people very quickly said, we want to bring you in for this. And in many instances, it really was for community conversations. It was the Congress on Children. Methodist Healthcare Ministries cares very much about that. They underwrite us to do the day-long Congress on Children. So we're not creating the content in a situation like that. We're streaming it bumper to bumper and making no editorial comment about it, but then that content is there for people to go back to later as well.
Did you say $350,000 in costs every year?
That's our budget, yeah.
Oh, that's your budget? Oh,
That's our budget.
That's how much money you have to spend.
So it costs us $1,000 a day to exist. I mean, if you just look at it in a rough sense.
That seems crazy to me. That's so much money. I mean, outside of equipment costs, what else? I mean, you pay salaries, I guess, yeah. Wow.
And what people do you have? I mean, you have
We have the
you have 4 staff people.
and then freelancers that we bring on. And then, I mean, there are other things too, like our workers' comp is, if I paid workers' comp at clerical rate of people sitting behind a computer, it would be 30 cents on 100, but if you do mobile videography, it's more than $3. So it's that kind of thing. And paying benefits and paying, I mean, doing right by people. So we have not controlled the content in most circumstances, although we obviously do choose what we do and what we don't do. I mean, we don't do the local rock bands and stuff like that. It's really very much oriented towards civic engagement. We recently took the first step toward that, which was toward controlling the content, which was a forum, a community conversation on immigration. We have done a small start to a documentary on women and children who are coming to the U.S. from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, who are fleeing the violence in those countries. They're coming up into Texas, crossing the bridge, turning themselves in as asylum seekers, and then what Texas is doing because of the Obama administration policy on that is they're putting them in private prisons along with their children and locking them up for as long as a year at a time. And so we've done a documentary on that and on the people in the community in San Antonio and from McAllen to San Antonio who are trying to help these women and children and support them in their trek toward finding a better life in this country. And so one night a few weeks ago, we were able to secure a location for a community conversation that holds about 300 people. And we brought in people in the community who have been working with the women and children and community activists. And the evening opened with a screening of our documentary and then went to people in San Antonio who have been, when these women and children are released, meeting them with backpacks with food and some bus passes and have been helping them along their journey, talking about how, and have previously been visiting them in these private prisons and giving them some kind of hope for, you know, that someone does care about them and is working with them. So those people gave some testimonials about what they were, you know, what the circumstances were that they were dealing with these women. One of the legal aid people gave a discussion of the legal obstacles about it. We had another activist who had followed the money on the private prisons, and which Congress people had taken contributions from them, and he'd done all this research, so he did a terrific presentation on that. And then they had two Congress people, we had two Congress people there, and at the very end of it, the Congress people were asked to respond to all of this. And so they stood up and pledged to not take contributions from them and did their, you know, did their own conversation about what this was. And it was a very interesting event because it sort of was instead of starting with the Congress people having a news conference, it was them being exposed to all of the people in the community testifying about what was going on, and then the Congress people made news. So it was sort of creating content and creating news, but having that conversation come from people. And it was underwritten by Methodist Healthcare Ministries, which felt very strongly about supporting that kind of work. So
how would, I mean, I published a local online newspaper. How would something like that help me? And how would I use an organization like yours to help my organization?
I think that most of the time, other news organizations would either connect with something like us or do it on a much smaller scale, and you don't have to do it on that larger scale. So
You talked about paid live streaming.
And if you wanted to do that, you can do what we're streaming right now is going straight to YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
You can have things on YouTube that are public, and you can have things on YouTube that are unlisted, and you can have things on YouTube that are private. So you can arrange for even an Eventbrite to bring you in the side door, so that only people that you give access to or whatever can see that event. So that would be the simplest way of doing it.
So when you did your event, like, did you sell tickets? Did you give us some of the logistics? Because that's what I'm here for, is sort of some of the logistics.
For this one, for the event that we did not sell tickets. But it was really important that we reach a bunch of people in the community who we would not necessarily be able to reach online. So, because it was, I mean, paper still counts, right? So we ended up with a bunch of outreach going through the Catholic Church and various parishes that is going out from ministers and from priests and from nuns. The nuns are very involved in this, including the nun that the Pope called in. So those folks were distributing it absolutely in a non-online kind of way. We did distribute it online in social media and through Facebook push and stuff, but we didn't do it Eventbrite, we did do a Facebook event
Mhm.
for that.
Just, for those of us who don't have people who plan events, plan international events on our staff, right?
What?
Can you give me like 3 or 4 things that I really need to know? Like, for example, I met a woman a couple of years ago. She was making a documentary. It's called American Nurse. You may have heard about it. It had a national release last year. Nurses loved it. And when I met her, she said, we talked, and since I'm a nurse and run North Carolina Health News, I said, you need to come to North Carolina and show it. And so when her film premiered and she got like a major distribution thing, I collaborated with the State Nursing Association to do her initial screening at a theater in Raleigh. And I did all kinds of outreach for her, and I was not able to monetize it. So, I just, because it was in the theater, so she has said she'd come back. What do I need to do to make this actually work for me? That's kind of the stuff I want to learn.
Well, first of all, we all do have an amazing asset in that our sites are promote events.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that basic thing going. So I'm running a ton of ads on our newsletters and on the site about Uncharted and putting it out there. And we're putting a ton on Facebook and a ton on Twitter. So that's one thing that we have this amazing exposure. And in terms of monetizing it, it's getting sponsors that are helping you underwrite the costs and put it together. And we've seen it. I mean, Marcy, you guys did one, sort of off the cuff, and Jay certainly talked about putting together something using those assets and collaborating with people who are there. So maybe it's a minimal ticket cost. Maybe you're getting some organization to underwrite the cost of the rental of the theater or whatever, but contributions and thinking big on the sponsorship, on those people. I mean, really brainstorm on anything that is going to benefit from the sale of this book, from the documentary, anything that that can work with that.
There's assuming there's a cost to Eventbrite. What's the cost? Is it like a flat rate, or is it a percentage, or?
It's generally basically free. I mean, it can go up to costing.
I think there's some minimal cost to it. To be honest with you, I don't particularly. We've done both something called brown paper tickets and Eventbrite.
Okay.
I think they both take some small percentage. And apparently Eventbrite does training. I don't know, again, how available it is, where, who, what, and when, but Lance actually attended something from Eventbrite because that was where I got this number about tickets, the majority being sold in the last 4 days prior to the event.
I have one question, if you don't mind. Have you considered selling ad space on your live streams?
Yes, and actually we're looking for, we sell sponsorships on them right now.
Right.
I'm sorry, and yes, and we are also looking to expand that considerably.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
And do you sell aside from the sponsorships that you have for the Uncharted, do you also sell ad space for a program or something like that?
We haven't.
Okay.
I can show you actually the programs that we use. They're very small. They're very portable.
Mm-hmm.
We allow them to have. We have signage at the event. We thank our sponsors. We thank them everywhere along the way that we can. And we do have a gift bag, so it's not. There's really nothing gifty in it, but it's just information that they're allowed to give us to, talk about who they are and what they do.